When it comes to the Federal Reserve, I can quote Britney Spears on this, actually paraquote her. Oops, they did it again. Bitcoin, I have one word, wow. Wall Street, definite change of sentiment these days. A major company had layoffs the other day and the stock actually went down, which is much different than what's been happening. And when it comes to the real estate market, as we've discussed, residential real estate values have bottomed, residential mortgage rates have topped, but the commercial real estate industry looks like the second shoe is just beginning to fall now. Welcome back to This Week in Mortgage, everybody. My name is Sam Battaglia, your favorite mortgage broker in California here at Mortgage Black in Beverly Hills. Hope you had a great week. All right, well, the Federal Reserve did it. They went 25 basis points. Not hard to see that coming, as we talked about. And we also saw coming that bond yields, treasury yields, would go down and stocks would sell off because the Fed is indeed out of touch. And I wish I was an options trader for the last 2 weeks, just for a few days at least, because we hit this right on the head. The markets think the Federal Reserve's out of touch. Probably a little bit crazy raising rates this week, as we've got a banking system that's definitely in a little bit of peril. This isn't systematic, but there's some players out there that could get hurt. So we'll see what happens. Again, I think the banking system's fine. This is just not the week for the Federal Reserve to raise rates. When they did that, they now threw prime at 8%, which is actually very high. And I'm going to say that for the first time. That's a big number. The Fed funds overnight rate is now between 4.75 and 5. Just call it 5. The banks will borrow the money from the Fed at 5. They'll turn around and throw 3 points on it, and that's called prime, which us consumers consume it at. And that's at 8. 8's high. That's going to come down. And as I predicted on the first show at the beginning of this year, the Federal Reserve will cut rates this year. And I think that first rate cut, just 48 hours after they hiked, will be a bigger cut than expected. I'm going to make a bold prediction here and say the first rate cut they have will come way before the end of the year, and it will be for no less than 100 basis points. So that's my prediction, and I think as they said on the radio once or twice, the first cut is the deepest. Get ready for 100 basis points. But there is a bright spot to all this. The yield curve, the 2, 3, 5, 7, 10-year, 2-month, 6-month, 3-month, 1-month treasuries, they are straightening out. The inversion between the 2 and the 10 is now about 30 basis points. It was north of 100 basis points just 10 days ago, which is a terrible sign for the economy. That shows uncertainty in the short term and the long term. At least now, the bright spot is the yield curve is normalizing. And when it comes to the Federal Reserve, no need to say sorry now. Just don't raise rates anymore. All right, moving on to Bitcoin. I can't believe Bitcoin, to be honest with you. It continues to act like gold and treasuries, which are a flight to safety and quality, yet Bitcoin doesn't really exist. So, once again, the reason Bitcoin, the reason I'm talking about is this. Not because it's near an all-time high. It's probably down, 55% from its all-time high. It's just what it's done in the last 2 weeks because it was invented to be an alternative to our banking system. And because the banks, a few of them have failed, and the Treasury and the Fed really doesn't look like they know what they're doing right this second, they will ultimately figure it out like they always do because they've got their bazookas, so to speak. But Bitcoin was invented to be an alternative banking system, and people are actually putting their money there, which is kind of crazy considering everything crypto has gone through in the last 6 months. So this is not good for the main banking system because you can't equivalate the Bitcoin and the main banking system because the main banking system is backed by the U.S. government. Bitcoin's backed by the support of its supporters, I guess. But you can't buy groceries with Bitcoin. So if I was the Federal Reserve, I would take a look and see why everybody is flocking towards Bitcoin. And as I mentioned, sometime in the last year, go watch my videos, I said the U.S. should buy every single Bitcoin they could possibly get their hands on because something like this would eventually happen. And there's only about 21 million total Bitcoin in the world, and they'll never, quote-unquote, print anymore. So Bitcoin, there's not a lot of them. So the government should still buy all the Bitcoin just to control that system. All right, Wall Street, quite a funny place. Wall Street is one of the only places on the planet where good news is bad news and bad news is good news. Well, not this week. We've had a change of sentiment. major company, major retailer that delivers stuff to your house the same day or the next day, actually had major layoffs this week, and their stock actually fell, which is not in line with what we traditionally, the last decade on Wall Street, understand Wall Street to be a cost-cutting measurement place. And this company, major retailer, their stock fell after they cut jobs. This isn't a good sign for the stock market and the general attitude towards it. But like I said, this is earlier in the year again, this is a stock picker's market and continues to be. There is no rising tide, i.e. the Federal Reserve's easy, cheap money policy to lift all boats. So this is a stock picker's market. And I know I'm going to be talking about this in the upcoming months a lot. I'm just going to touch on it today. There is a new bubble forming in our society and beginning to form on Wall Street in the pre-IPO sector. AI startups. If you've got the word AI behind you, I'm going to harken back to the word .com behind you about 25 years ago somehow now. AI is the next bubble, but it will be the next leading leg up on Wall Street once all of this dust settles. All right, moving on to real estate and mortgage rates. Again, should have been an options trader the last few weeks. Yields are down, housing has bottomed, and the housing market has a lot of support for values because we do not have an overabundance of inventory, which is the saving grace to values, because with these rates, if there was a lot of inventory, values would come way down. But residential is not our issue now. Residential's chilling out. My prediction of a 250 yield on the 10-year that I made earlier this year might come sooner than later, which will put rates comfortably in the high 4s, low 5s. We're not there yet, but it feels like we're getting there. My concern in the real estate business right now is commercial real estate. Major retailer this week that sells shoes, for that matter, they plan on closing a lot of their stores in their malls, and I think this is the trend that is going here to stay. I think a lot of these retailers, if you have figured out if you can get the right kind of online exposure, you really don't need to have a store because everybody kind of knows what shoes they like, and everybody pretty much knows their shoe size at this point, unless you're a kid and you're still growing, obviously. But then you're taking a stab in the dark anyways. But I think a big change is coming for the commercial real estate industry. And I think this is indeed going to lead to something I've talked about before, which are special use permits for unused or unused, neglected, let's call it, commercial spaces that can't be rented. Some of those landlords will probably work something out with some of the tenants to get them out of there, maybe go to the city, the county, wherever they have to go to get some special use permits to convert some of this commercial space into residential. And again, that's not going to work for every commercial space, but I bet you there's a handful in every major city that can definitely help out the housing supply shortage. Okay, everybody, that is my show for this week. Once again, somehow it's Friday in LA. It's sunny, blue skies. Hope everybody has a great weekend. I guess it's spring now, which is terrific. As always, if you have any questions related to your mortgage, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Please take care of each other. Be a good neighbor. Be a good person. All those things we were taught when we were little. Have a great weekend. Please be safe. Enjoy yourselves. Thanks again for watching.